Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, a friend, I hear it's actually 2018, Childish Gambino's on the radio, and there's a Superman game in development.
There's a Superman game in development? Maybe, Scott Tilford. Take this with a big grain of salt, as you should, all rumours. But there is a big rumour doing the rounds. It's being picked up by a few websites, and we know that WB Montreal, who you might know as the developers of the upcoming Gotham Knights, they are currently working on a second project. It is described as a new IP. It's a AAA open world game. They've recently had another job listing for this title. However, there has been a leaker out there who has reliably revealed stuff in the past when it comes to WB's DC games. You know, they talked about Gotham Knights before that was a thing. They've talked in the past about what Rocksteady's been up to. This is James Sigfield, and they were tweeting out when this story was doing the rounds and it was picked up on Reset Era, they were essentially teasing the fact that it might be a Superman game. Now, they would know because they have also discussed the Superman games of like years past. You know, you made the joke in the beginning, but this is because over the years, WB generally has tried to make a Superman game since essentially like 2013. I think James Sigfield said that since 2013 they've been taking active pitches for it. We know that there was a game in development at Rocksteady, a Superman game, that was cancelled. We know that WB Montreal had an actual first crack at it a few years ago, and that was cancelled. So there are at least two cancelled projects that we know of, but apparently this one might be the one, and it might be what the second studio is working on now. Like I said, this is a little bit flimsy. It comes by way of the reliability of this one leaker, but also the creative director at WB Montreal has been liking these Superman tweets, which has led a lot of people to speculate that, you know, essentially they're trying to tease the fact that they're working on this game before they officially announce it, presumably after Gotham Knights comes out.
Delving into the Twitters worked very well for Blue Box Studios and Abandoned and Hassan Karahan, so I can only go with this. I do think, I mean, like you said though, Big Siggers has been correct in the past. Like, I mean, he was the dude that leaked Gotham Knights beforehand and we knew that was coming. And obviously he's been proven right over the years. And the idea of a Superman game feels like the most go-to obvious thing that we just haven't had in so long. Like, I'm one of the weirdest humans alive because I quite like the Superman Returns game, the 2006 one, I think it was.
That is weird.
Literally only because it was one of the only games, like, you know, that let you land and take off whenever you want. I just want that in more games, and that was one of the things that I liked about Anthem, for God's sake. Like, just give me that if you can, especially on newer hardware, if you can, you know, make it so that level of detail, LOD, distancing, all these different things load really fast because of the SSD, and you can zoom right down and land in the middle of the street, fight some dudes, and then kick off the ground and fly somewhere else. And if they can make the combat work, where you're maybe not always just locking on, rotating around dudes with eye lasers and whatever, find some way of doing like a cool, you know, melee version of like the Arkham style combat or something, then it could totally work. And like, that was the thing that drew me to the, like I said, the 2006 one. I mean, I was wide-eyed, my Xbox 360 is brand new, I've got King Kong, I'm putting Superman Returns on, I'm loving it. And other than Rise of Apocalypse, there's not really been that many, if hardly any, 3D Superman games. Like, he's been in stuff, but that's been about it.
This is what I want to know more about, man, because like, why has WB just failed to get this game out of production for like 7 years now? You know, there have been two failed games in development from two good studios. Like, everyone assumed that Rocksteady was working on a Superman game after Arkham Knight, how they were teasing it throughout that title, and then that was just cancelled. They were moved on to Suicide Squad. Interestingly enough, Suicide Squad was originally at WB Montreal before it was cancelled and moved to Rocksteady. Like, I need a big deep dive into what's going on behind the scenes, because these are some of like the most profitable superheroes, some of the most profitable properties at the moment, and this publisher is having such trouble, you know, getting them made. So I'm taking this with a huge pinch of salt. I don't necessarily doubt that they are working on a Superman game. What I doubt is if it will ever actually come out, because we've been in this situation so many times before and they've never managed to publish anything yet. But it seems, like you say, it seems like a no-brainer. Like, why hasn't there been a Superman game since then? Like, and a good one at that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you think as well, like going forward, because we had the announcement for the Kill the Justice League game with an evil Superman in,
yeah,
and it feels like there's been this run of evil Superman based stuff that sort of came back around eventually in Justice League, especially in the Snyder Cut, manages to sort of smooth those things out. But for Snyder was very much exploring the whole what if Superman was evil thing. We had that in Injustice with the Injustice franchise is almost a decade old at this point. Like we've had a lot of evil Superman, and it seems like he's going to be that in the Kill the Justice League game. But that's the thing. It's like, do you just cut ties from that? Do you try and do a shared universe? Do you do something that is more like through line, the big blue Boy Scout type stuff? You do like a nice, charming Superman, the way that it's never really been done, like a proper old school. Like, I guess it's like, what do you think they should do? For me, I would take old school Superman over Aggie Superman any day of the week.
Yeah, I fully agree. I've had my fill of Aggie Superman. It was quite novel back in around Man of Steel's time, when we were getting this kind of like new version of the character. Ooh, he's a little bit edgy. Ooh, he's in handcuffs. And then we got Injustice, obviously.
Superman.
He hates being Superman. Then we got Injustice, which was very much just like, what if Superman was the biggest dick? And then we had like a bunch of games of that. So for me, I kind of do want to see a more classical version of the character in game form. And I do think that'll be incredibly difficult to pull off. There's a reason why so many bad Superman games exist, and that's because he's so powerful. It's so difficult to make the character mechanically, vulnerable or relatable without pulling some kind of shenanigans about kryptonite or magic or whatever. But it's definitely going to be challenging, but it's a challenge worth meeting, I think. I think you could do something really creative, really interesting with this character, and hopefully that's what they're doing now. We sadly don't know anything other than that. It's an open world game, which, makes sense. You want to be able to take off, you want to be able to fly around, you want to be able to travel at the speed of light and such. But yeah, for me, I want to see a classical version of the character, and I kind of hope it's something inventive.
Do you think the reason they haven't been able to do it is because they can't answer that question? Like, do we give him a health bar? I mean, it's only that there have been 3D Superman games before, but like you said, there's always been some contrived reason as to why the goons that you were punching didn't go down in one hit, even if it was just video games and they treat, Superman's powers like a lightsaber, where it's just, it just takes a few hits to put these dudes down. Like, maybe they just have to gamify it in a way that with more realistic graphics, it would just look weird or it would feel weird. But I wonder if that is the biggest reason why they haven't done a proper big Superman game where people would just take one look at it and go, that doesn't make sense, because you should be able to launch someone over the sun with one punch, and you should be able to get around a hell of a lot faster. And maybe the only way to do that story-wise is the enemy's got kryptonite gloves, or you're standing on a pool of kryptonite. Like, they've got to find some way to sort of de-Superman, which as a trope is always one of the weirdest things to do, and it tends to always the superheroes got to regain their powers is kind of usually one of the most boring ways to go. Totally,
but I think you could do it, I think if it takes anything from the Zack Snyder interpretation of the character and the DC universe, I'm not a huge fan of that movie, that movie series, but I do like that Zack Snyder kind of treats these characters as gods, It's not like Superman beating up a few thugs. It's like on a cosmic scale, like these are real kind of like above humanity characters, and whether that depiction of those characters, works for you is an entirely different thing. But I think there's something potentially in that when you translate it to video game form. Like, you've got this god essentially, so up the scale, up the just kind of like intensity of everything to kind of match that, rather than going the opposite way and bringing him down to Earth, literally bringing him down to a human level. I think embrace it now. Hopefully we've got the tech to do this justice. I mean, I remember when there was that demo from one of the cancelled games, or maybe it was one of the pitches a few years ago, where it was Superman battling someone, and they were flying through skyscrapers and stuff. They were going from outside to interior, they were fighting, they were going out the other side. Like, try to nail that sense of scale, and I think you could have something that separates it from the likes of the Avengers game, or the likes of the Spider-Man game, which, I love that Spider-Man game, but, have different flavors of superhero. Don't just try to make the same thing, and don't just say, well, we've got Superman, we've got the Arkham combat, how do we make these two things fit? Because it's not going to work, and presumably, potentially, that might be why there's been so many failed attempts, because that might have been the mentality going into it. whether it was Rockstar, whether it was WB Montreal in the past.
Yeah, I think the more I think about it, the more a Superman game is just so hard to get right. It's like you have to make a humongous expanse of land to then fly over as fast as possible. So that sort of weirdly like eliminates both sides cancel each other out. Where you have to make him fly slower, but then it doesn't feel like Superman, but you need to give him enough space to fly around. But then it's just maybe it's just a big old nightmare, and it's been a nightmare for as long as video games have been a thing. And the more technologies become more impressive, the harder it actually is to make a Superman game that lines up with that stuff. But let us know what you think down in the comments below. Did you like Superman the Returns game? Because there is a help group out there. I'm right here. But let us know what you think, what you would like from a Superman game going forward. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.